Hello, everyone, and happy Monday. Welcome back to another exciting AdvisorShares AlphaNooner. Today, we are excited to welcome back TerrAscend's Executive Chairman, Jason Wild, and founder of Sunburn Cannabis, Brady Cobb. Looking forward to a conversation on the state of cannabis reform. We are squarely in summer, and things seem to be heating up rather than cooling down, so lots to talk about. A good reminder, if you're out there and you want to join the conversation, if you have questions, comments you want to throw in, you are always welcome to put that in the chat, and I will kind of look at it as we are going through. But I know there's a lot to talk about, so try to get those questions in early as we are going along. With all that said, Jason and Brady, thanks so much for joining us. I cannot believe we're halfway through the year, but excited to see some exciting things in the world of cannabis again.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Of course.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, glad to have you on. All right, well then I figured let's start kind of at a high level where we are today in the world of U.S. cannabis. Again, as I mentioned, we're obviously halfway through the year so far. Kind of give us a sense of, what's the lay of the land and where we stand today in the world of cannabis. Jason, would you mind jumping in first?
Sure, the lay of the land. So I think we're getting closer. I mean, obviously we had a little bit of a slowdown on rescheduling. I think all of us on this stream probably thought it was going to be happening sooner, or we'd already be there. But that's gone a little slower. I think at this point we're probably a lot closer. I think the real deciding factor is. Or should be whether the president really wants it to happen. And I do believe, based upon some of President Trump's tweets and public statements, and then some other non-public statements, I believe that we're as close as we've ever been from a rescheduling perspective. Safe banking, we've all had the football pulled out from us, like Lucy and Charlie Brown for the last few years. I think that. That could be coming in the fall. But I think, my view is over the last year or so, my view is sort of that in order to enact some change, we need to start working from the top down, as opposed to maybe from the bottom up in terms of how everybody's been doing it for the last several years. We know President Trump's views on the issue, and I think we just, me and a lot of other people in the industry have been working to get him to take some action there.
Yeah, I think that's great. I know we'll definitely dig into that in a little more depth, but before we move on, sort of Brady, any final thoughts on sort of where we're high level, seeing the second half of 2025 as sunnier than the first? What's sort of the general vibe?
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody knows I'm generally an optimist. It's just part of my DNA of believing that we're on the road to change and understanding that it's definitely a longer road than most people anticipated, but undoing 70, 80 years of failed drug policy is going to take some time, especially when the folks that have been propping it up have been writing checks in DC for a while. But I think Jason nailed it. And I think you're going to see increased noise and increased action, more importantly, from the administration. It seems to be something is taking hold. There's a lot of different folks that are, in the periphery around the president, as well as the president's statements himself, and some stuff that Jason and I are working on directly. That I think is going to begin to bear some fruit here into the market. Again, nothing's going to be fast. We've all been through many different cycles, and federal policy reform, nothing's done until it's done. So I'm just talking about incremental momentum moving forward seems to be building for some potential action in the back half of this year. So I'm excited to see where we go.
Yeah, that's great. Again, I do think it has been a relatively quiet first half of the year, but it does seem to be really changing, most notably, at least recently, a lot of open letters that have been really important. I, saw Mike Tyson early starting the day off today with a great interview kind of on Fox, which again, I think more that conservative lean, which kind of ties in well to the administration. Kind of what can you tell us about that element and sort of, Tyson coming back in the mix and really being a voice and an advocate as it relates to Trump? Jason might throw your way as well.
Sure. Yeah. So Brady and I actually both have recently joined the board of Mike's company, Karma, or Tyson 2.0, like most people know it. And one of the things I think that motivated both of us to join the board and to dedicate more time to it is that it's clear that Mike is ready to really go out and start advocating on behalf of the industry. I think it's been pretty clear the last couple of months, but he really believes in it. He's authentic about it. He's obviously an authentic user of cannabis. And he's been a big supporter of Trump. Trump has been a big supporter of his. So I don't think there's too many better, more authentic people out there to be getting that message across. Brady and I have been working with Mike and his wife Kiki for the last several months on some of these issues. We're starting to see some of those things come to the forefront a little bit more. But I can't be happier with how much effort he has put into it. I mean, the one thing, I just read one of Mike's biographies, and the one thing about him is Customato talked about if he told Mike to go do 100 sit-ups, he would do 1,000 sit-ups.
Jeez.
I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't met too many people who have the amount of discipline or work as hard towards achieving their goals, and that's definitely what I've witnessed firsthand when it comes to dealing with Mike. Brady, anything you'd add to that?
No, I think you nailed it. When Jason reached out to me, I was a small investor in Tyson 2.0 and have been following it. And one of the reasons I was really excited about investing in it is there's been plenty of celebrities that have come into the sector, and aside from looking for a way to monetize it, they don't believe in the plant. Mike's the one for me that really believes in the plant. It changed his life, as he talked about on Fox and Friends. So that was a draw for me because I felt like Jason and I and a few others were a couple of the CEOs that truly believed and also, used the plant too. So that was a big thing for me. And I think that authenticity, you can't replace it. There's not a price tag you can put on it. And it gives him the ability to speak on it and talk about it at the policy level with a real level of authority that others in the celebrity world just don't have. I think the second thing is, to Jason's point, is the work ethic has been just tremendous to watch. I mean, today's his birthday. Happy birthday, Mike. And he's on Fox and Friends at 8:30 doing what he did, which is, tremendous. And I think, for me, the third thing really is the access and the desire to actually lean in and call and work with the president and the president's team to really lean in for reform and not just kind of, write a letter and be on the sidelines, but to leverage his relationships and to really go in. Look, we're all going to see what comes from it. But to Jason's point, Mike's, from what I've seen, is one of the hardest workers I've seen. His wife, Kiki, has been absolutely amazing to deal with too. She works her butt off and has done an amazing job in getting all of this teed up. And, we're in the early innings, but we're working hard on it. And I think, the entire team at Tyson 2.0 and Karma is really working hard. So it's been a very rewarding, initiative, and I'm really glad Jason called me and asked me to be a part of it, along with Kiki as well. And it's been an honor to work alongside this group, and I think you're going to see a lot of exciting stuff coming out of it.
That's fantastic. Again, I think it does take a whole village to kind of make things come through, and having people work together is a big important thing. It looks like we lost Jason for a second, but I'm going to throw him back in. There we go. You're back. All right. No worries.
Sorry.
No worries. So just out of curiosity, in terms of Tyson himself, I think you're right, both of you, in terms of identifying that he has a background, he has a true belief, in the plant and kind of what he's doing and the mission that he's working through. I think a lot of people were worried when Trump was initially elected, just because, he is, not a user of a lot of substances. It's very, straight edge, I guess, ultimately, when it comes to using substances. How important do you think it is to having that background and also that relationship to kind of bridge that element? Or is it enough on its own, just that, it's a job supporting thing, it's an American industry? Is that enough? Or do you really need somebody who has that background, that experience to kind of really push things through? But I might throw that your way just because Jason jumped on later.
Yeah, so I think it's a combination. And look, there's been a lot of people that have worked really hard to elevate this issue. Big kudos to Jason and I's friend, and we both have worked with and served with Weldon Angelos as well.
Yes.
And the Weldon Angelos project, Mission Green. I mean, Weldon was pardoned by President Trump in his first term. It wasn't a Democratic president that pardoned him. It was President Trump, and it was a conservative Senator Mike Lee, as well as even Cory Booker, that helped advocate for him. And so, there's a lot of this has been a rising tide floating a lot of different boats here through the years, and to be able to work with Mike and Jason and Kiki and the team right now to help seize upon this opportunity that it feels like we have. It feels like, there's moments in life and things happen in life and things come together at certain times, and an opportunity presented itself to lean in, and Mike didn't hesitate one bit. And I think his authenticity absolutely is a huge lever to the credibility of why he's doing it. It's not a cash grab. It's he actually believes in it. And this is an American industry. This is a homegrown American industry with over 400,000 people that do this every day. North of 90% of Americans favor cannabis reform. You see the numbers in the alcohol industry, where alcohol use is declining in the younger generations. And politically, it's a very opportune time with younger voters looking for ways to lean into Republicans. And this is a way and a very easy win. This is something that Democrats promised. This would be something they normally would take a win on. They couldn't deliver, and this is a great opportunity for President Trump to swoop in and deliver a win and engage with younger voters in a deeper way. So I think it's a myriad of factors, and I think the president's is thus far his team's been great to work with, and kudos to Mike Tyson, Weldon Angelos. I mean, even the Charlie Batchel and a lot of others at various different various different organizations, reform organizations that we have. There's a lot of groups that have been looking to raise a lot of noise here, but I will tell you that I think what Mike stepping in the ring, pun intended, has really put a spotlight on it. And I think you're going to see a lot of good stuff start to flow out of it.
Yep, that's fantastic. Jason, any thoughts as well? I just know that you obviously have had close, interactions with him through the DA and just talking with him in general. Any sort of additional thoughts in terms of, the personality and how that kind of translates into talking to Trump and kind of speaking his language ultimately?
Yes. Well, I think something that from the conversations I've heard that Trump has had, I think something that appeals to him is the view that he's been convinced of is the view that cannabis is not a gateway drug, but is an exit drug. And he obviously has Trump has a brother who died of alcoholism. I think Mike going there and making the case and showing how he has really improved his life immensely over the last 15 years or so when he moved towards cannabis and away from what I would call real drugs, not medicine, but true drugs. I think he's a great example of using cannabis as an exit drug. And, and Mike is living I truly believe he's living his best life right now. So I think that helps. The fact that he's got a good relationship with Trump is also a major positive because we all know, like, Trump loves a good story, things that are marketable. I mean, what's more marketable than hearing out his good lifelong friend, Mike Tyson, about the benefits of cannabis and helping him do something about it.
Yeah, it definitely has that sort of like media glimmer, I think, around it, just with it. It's a very sellable story. And obviously, I think a very common sense story that resonates, I think, with a lot of Americans on that front. In terms of some of the other issues that it kind of tackles into, I know there's been a lot of talk lately about sort of, foreign growers in the U.S. or sort of, combating the opioid crisis. How much does that kind of come into play? And is how as an industry is that kind of getting conveyed to the administration?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's something that Mike has been very vocal about. He even mentioned it on the interview this morning. And that is something that definitely appeals to Republicans in terms of, we've got this homegrown industry, but the fact is that these, foreign cartels have infiltrated it and they're selling unsafe, untested products with no age gating. The fact is all this, hemp or whatever we want to call it, these products that are really cannabis, but that are being sold in gas stations and things like that. They're not being, the kids are not being ID'd for this, as opposed to all cannabis dispensaries are very strict. I would say there is practically zero, purchases by kids that are not of age. So that's something important that to Mike is safe, tested product that is not being sold to kids. And I don't think that anybody in the industry wants to appeal to kids.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say, I think ultimately I know that is something that resonates very much with Republicans, but should with Democrats as well. I think nobody wants, things that should not be in the hands of kids ultimately. So sorry, I didn't mean to
100%. 100%. And I think what the ability, and one of the things that Mike's been conveying and we've been conveying along the way is the ability for the CCP illegal grows to even exist is because there's this half in, half out approach at the federal level. Because the federal government has not acted and actually followed through on addressing cannabis reform, which, reform and actually bringing cannabis into the light and out of the shadows at the federal level is what will allow the government to assess and identify the bad actors. It's what will allow, from a banking perspective, assuming we get banking reform, as the president has intimated, that would allow it, get the money in banks and you can immediately identify the bad actors. Those are conversations I had during Trump's first term with his Treasury Secretary at the time during his first term, was that the position is get it in the banks, you can actually see it. So, to think about an industry that is tariff-free, American-made, 400,000 workers, those are all things that appeal to the president. And then you have, the potential to root out Chinese corruption and or Chinese illegal grows that are going on in the United States. In a lot of instances, it's the same CCP that's moving fentanyl in and out of the U.S. through our mostly our northern border these days, not even our southern border. And then you've got these illegal grows set up there. So this is all about having safe, tested products that Americans have access to. It's not going to be for everybody. That's the other thing. It's not okay. So for those that don't want it, great. But for those that do, it should be age gated. It should be regulated. There should be one policy and one plan.
Yeah, no, I think that's perfectly said. And I guess ultimately with a lot of those issues, is that easier to impress the sort of how quickly it needs to be addressed rather than just, I think, having issues that should be addressed and need to be addressed, I think, from a regulation element versus saying like, we need to get this done now. It's important to get it done now and have that kind of
I think
speed.
I think all the hearings in Congress and the revelations that have come out over the last, call it 30 to 45 days about just the size, scope, and scale of the illegal Chinese operations and what's going on, especially, kudos to Senator Collins out of Maine for really speaking up about this. I mean, that comes out, and that immediately, when you start thinking about national security and how seriously the Trump administration takes that under Kash Patel and others, that it really elevated the issue. And then that was an opportunity for Mike to really lean in and talk about his feelings. And again, the more voices that are meaningful, like the letter that went out, those types of voices being elevated, and more importantly in this industry, we had some interesting chances on shots on goal in years past, but there was always sometimes kind of divergent views. Let's get safe banking across the line, and then there was the entire fight over what does it actually look like. The pour just too hot or too cold, and look, nobody got to eat.
Mhm.
So, it feels like this time there's definitely a little bit more unison in the industry too, which makes me happy and something I'm proud of.
Yeah, there was a question that I wanted to ask as well, is sort of like, is this the time? What's the feeling in the industry in terms of where we are from a collaboration versus competition element? I know obviously there's some friendly competition always. I think that's just what it is. You find your own products the best, as always, as that's the way it is, kind of thing, your own child. But is it now, because I think we are seeing more and more pushes to have a singular voice, a singular kind of push, which has helped a ton. Where do we stand ultimately kind of as we are mid 2025 on that front in terms of the balance?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty collaborative. I think everybody's sort of rowing the boat in the same direction. There's different people or different companies are working or focused on maybe on some different efforts. Like one thing that we've been working on or we've been funding from the TerrAscend's side is the David Boies lawsuit. That's one shot on goal. I think versus 3 or so years ago, there was only one path, and that was safe banking. Yeah. Now we've really got we're attacking all three branches of government through judicial, hopefully with the David Boies case, the executive branch focusing on Trump, and Congress. And when it comes down to it, Trump is a business guy. He's pretty I think he's pretty pragmatic. I think that's probably our highest probability route in the near term. And as Brady mentioned, this is what a more perfect issue to steal from the Democrats. I think that anybody who's been following the cannabis space for the last 3 or 4 years, that's sort of been a microcosm of the frustration that a lot of people have had with our government and with certain politicians saying something and doing something else. I think this would be a great way for President Trump to really get the support of of a group of Americans that wouldn't normally think would be supporting this. But the fact is, all the polls show that a huge percentage of Republicans and Democrats support it. So I think it's really a winning issue for him.
Yeah, it's definitely been a friendly issue, I think, through and through. The real questions, I think, is when do we actually see it change over? And again, I know everyone's waiting. It does seem like we are seeing, again, like hints and positive things that, again, the administration is kind of digesting, is open to channels of communication, which I think is the most important thing ultimately. Is there anything that both of you either think that the administration is missing, doesn't understand, or you'd like more education on? Or do you think that they pretty much have a good sense of kind of where we are, what the industry needs, what people need in the U.S.?
I think, yeah, go ahead, Brady.
Yeah, I think there's a rescheduling and safe banking are largely understood to be the two pieces of action items that need to be executed on, are the most easily attainable things to execute on. But there's a litany of items that follow upon the passage of either one of those things. So and that's part of the education that we're doing now, and we're focusing in on DOJ is, okay, let's assume it happens. Okay, what do we have to go do now to actually make it real? So you have a whole host of other, it's like kicking a snowball down the hill. Great, it's rolling. Now we actually have to go address all the interagency issues. These are all good things. I'm not saying it's bad. It would be the greatest thing since sliced bread if we actually started tackling those issues. But the first thing we have to do is actually get across the goal line. We've been around it, we've looked at it, we've seen it, we kind of know what it maybe looks like in there, but we've never actually crossed into it. So the two big things to knock down are safe banking and rescheduling. One requires congressional action. One is something that the AG with the president's support could do right away. So that's where we're really leaning in and focusing, and for all the reasons we've already talked about, and I think from a timeline standpoint, it's not going to even begin to hazard a guess, but I'm a big believer in momentum and incrementalism. Been talking about that on several of these, as well as a lot of podcasts I've done. And incrementally, we are moving along at a quicker pace throughout the course of this year than I thought we would have. In the engagement level, not with staffers, not with congressional staffers, not with conversations in hallways and in the House or the Senate buildings, but within the White House have progressed faster than I would thought. I know Jason feels the same way, but we're not home. We're not going to be home, but the momentum is building at a level that is quicker than I thought it would be, and it's exciting to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and but we have been disappointed over the last several years, obviously. So we're all a little, we're probably sort of saying it with that knowledge that we've had the ball pulled out from under us one too many times. The other thing I would add in terms of education is I think that the administration has really gotten up the curve in terms of understanding these illegal cartel grows. I mean, I feel like every day now I'm seeing new news about how different large scale illicit grows have been shut down, and I think that that's something that we've been communicating with the administration for since the president sort of won the election, and when we're talking to his transition team about it. But now we're starting to see some actual results on that front. So that they've definitely come up the learning curve. Other than that, I think that they're pretty up to speed on all the issues that are affecting the industry at this point.
That's awesome.
I would say I would add one thing, and Jason mentioned it briefly, but I think it's really important in context, is the Boys lawsuit is a very interesting chess piece on this chessboard. So, obviously awaiting to see if we get Supreme Court review, which was always the goal. Every trial court order or appellate court order along the way, everyone, it's over, they lost, not understanding that he's been driving towards, my understanding, Supreme Court review, and that's the long-term play. That is a leverage play, and that's also a very interesting way to gauge DOJ's reaction and ultimately temperature. And it's a very interesting thing to have hanging out there as we go through the rest of this process. Knowing that you have justices on there that have made very favorable opinions on the need for cannabis reform on the high court, pun intended. In the past, it's a very interesting piece to have on the chessboard. It may not be the king or the queen, but it is a very important part of the overall process.
Yeah,
That's just my opinion.
No, but again, I think that it's really important to have those multiple lanes and multiple ways to kind of attack the issue and move it forward. That high court thing, though, is fantastic. I do think you need to do like merch or something when and if that goes through. I feel like that would be a very solid T-shirt or something, which again, small thing, but important. And like you're saying, I think ultimately with a lot of these things, I think we have seen frustrations in the past, but I think continually trying to push forward and having somebody like Mike Tyson, who again, with your 100 sit-ups versus 1,000 sit-ups, having that drive and that relentlessness to really, not overdo it, but, really deliver on it is, I can kind of think the attitude and the approach that you want to see. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then in terms of kind of everything else and looking ahead, anything that you're kind of else is on your radar or want people to know as they're kind of looking at the cannabis industry and kind of, keeping an eye on it as we head to the rest of 2025.
Brady, what do you got?
Oh, sorry.
I mean, for me, it's just again, it's always been the biggest. It's always been the biggest overhang or the biggest glaring issue in the industry is the federal reform piece for me. This whole hemp versus cannabis and watching Texas very closely for special session. I think keep an eye out for the influence of the alcohol industry as we continue to see hemp reform measures pop up. And obviously the alcohol industry, with it being widely distributed now through most major retailers, are starting to tap into that and the leverage and influence that they'll bring to that process. But the single biggest thing I think you have to pay attention to right now is what's going on in Washington, D.C. relative to cannabis, and trying to get the industry unified around, make it safe, make it tested, allow Americans to have access to it on their terms, and make sure it's age gated properly. And let's get the bad actors out. And there is one plant, the cannabis plant. This whole distinction and everything that was going on between, smoke shops and legal cannabis and all that, that's just a lot of noise. We need one set of clear regulations federally, and that this industry, that's an American-made industry, needs to be banked and have U.S. capital markets as well as U.S. banking, so that the American worker can participate, and that these deals aren't flowing up to Bay Street. They should be on Wall Street, and all of the ancillary dollars that are spent should be on Wall Street, not Bay Street. So these are all the big things that I'm watching for and paying attention to. It's not different than a lot of the things we've been paying attention to over the last 6 to 8 years of this painful slog. And, my wife is convinced I'm a masochist, but ultimately, I feel like we're close as we've ever been. I keep telling myself that I might just be walking down the yellow brick road, but one day we'll find out. But I think we're at a place now, and I say this very proudly, where I get to work with Jason and Kiki and Mike Tyson and have a much higher level of access and be able to not have. We've shared several policy ideas and what's going on, and we haven't been kicked out of the room yet, which I can't say under prior administrations or working with Senate and House staff. So this is a very exciting time for me personally. I'm not tempering everything, as Jason said. I'd say not just have the ball stolen from us. I think someone grabbed it, stuck a knife in it, and then threw it in the trash. So not getting too far ahead of ourselves, but it's a pretty exciting time, and those are the key things I'd pay attention to.
Yep, still putting the work in, still putting the grind in to get that done. I know, again, it has been a long road, yellow brick or not, but again, being able to do it, it's important work, and I think it makes a difference. So I think that's great. Yep. Jason, any additional thoughts on that?
No, I think Brady covered it perfectly, and I think that's something that really resonates with Republicans and with Trump, is the fact that while this is a homegrown industry in the U.S., as of right now, we're exporting our listings to Canada. And in addition to that, what makes it even crazier is that the Canadian companies are allowed to list on U.S. exchanges. I think that's something that should really resonate with President Trump when Mike gets to discuss that with him. And these are all just common sense, issues. Rescheduling. It shouldn't be in Schedule 1. As Mike mentioned, that it's ridiculous that it's scheduled in the same category as cocaine and heroin. The fact that we can't
and above fentanyl schedule too.
Yeah. So the good news is we're not trying to reinvent the wheel or convince the president of anything that's that crazy. These are all common sense issues, especially if you're a businessman and you see that it just doesn't make any sense the way it is right now.
Yep. I think ultimately it's sort of a problem right now that does have a very common sense and simple, set of solutions. So again, hopefully those are easy to present. I do think the industry, friends of the president being able to communicate and kind of elucidate on why those issues need solutions is an important thing, especially for right now. Again, hopefully we see that kind of embracing as we go forward. But again, I think it's great to see things heating up again and kind of having some glimmers of change, I think, coming through. Because again, I know most people weren't thinking in the first 100 days we'd see much, but we're now out of that. So it seems like things are changing on that front. So great. Again, really appreciate you both spending some time, giving some insight and sharing some of your views on how things are going. Again, I think great to be working with someone like Mike Tyson and his wife and trying to push things forward and finally get a solution. It'll be a very exciting day when and if we see that. So that'll be great. All right. Well, thank you both so much. Appreciate it. Everyone, thanks for joining. Really appreciate it as well. Hope you guys have a great rest of your Monday, and we will see you next time. Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Before investing, carefully consider the investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses found in the prospectus, available at AdvisorShares.com.